So I wanted to talk a little more about the experience that Venerable Bhikshuni and I had in Taiwan when we took our full ordination. We just returned Saturday. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about each of the ordinations. What they offered is we took first the Shramanarika ordination, and then the Bhikshuni ordination, and then the Bodhisattva precepts. And so I just wanted to reflect a little bit about each of those experiences. For the Shramanarika, the night before, we did a repentance ceremony, and in the main shrine, which is a huge building with 3 huge bronze Buddhas. The middle Buddha is Shakyamuni, and then on the right was Medicine Buddha, on the left is Amitabha. So these huge bronze Buddhas. And the hall is huge, and there's no beams in the hall. So, you know, wherever you're standing, you have a view of these huge Buddhas. And then on the walls are, I don't know how to explain it so well. Recessed in are a lot of small Buddhas with then lights on them. Did I put how many Buddhas? 14,800 small Buddhas. That gives you an idea of how big this hall is. It's huge. And so when we were doing the repentance ceremony, they turn off the big lights, and you just have the small little lights on each of the Buddhas, and then, spotlights on the 3 bronze huge Buddhas, which was quite beautiful. And so we chanted and did a lot of prostrating to the Buddhas over quite a long time that evening. And as we were doing that, a huge thunderstorm came through, and lightning and thunder, and along with the big drums and the chanting, and it was quite lovely. It just felt like all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas came to participate with great joy in that experience. So that was lovely. And then the Bhikshuni ordination, we started at 3:30 in the morning, and went first to the main shrine, and then we walked and did some ceremony, and then we walked to another building, walked up 4 flights of stairs, and then waited in queue to go in to be ordained by the Bhikshunis, 10 masters that were on the altar there. And after we were ordained by them, then we went back to the main shrine and lined up, and then welcomed the 10 bhikshus that came. Everybody was lined up, and kind of as an honoring of them coming. And after that, that's then when we walked down a zillion stairs. Down there's a big hill. And we all went down, and all of the guiding instructors, all of the people involved in the ordinations, the masters, everybody, and stood on stairs for a big photo. And they lined us all up, and they're very exacting in their lining up. So people would look up to see that the lines were straight, look sideways to see the lines straight, and took an hour or 2 at least to get us all lined up properly, and then take the pictures. And then after that, back up all the steps, and in the heat of the day, and it's very hot there, I will say. That was one day I wasn't sure I was going to make it up the stairs, but I did. And then back to the main shrine, and they had kind of a ceremonial feast for all of the masters, and some of the precept receivers served them. So it wasn't really like, they sat down and ate a huge meal. It was kind of ceremonial, but, they served them, and they, took a few bites, and So that was quite nice. And then after that, we went to lunch in the main dining room, which is another huge room that seats over 3,000 people. It's huge. And we sat there, and that day we had on our 3 robes, our haiqing, which is underneath the 3 robes, and we had on our alms bowl. So we ate from our alms bowl that day, which is quite a specific ceremony of how you eat. And so we did that. And then after lunch, we went back to the main shrine and repeated the whole process now with the bhikshus. So main shrine, did some ceremony, did some bowing, did some prostrating, and then walked again to the other building where the precept altar was, and went and then lined in queue, and then, you know, we go in and then we're ordained by the bhikshus. And then finally about 9-ish that evening finished and went and had a light supper and then off to bed. So that was a big day, needless to say. And then the last ordination was the Bodhisattva precepts. And during that one, we started at 4:30 in the morning outside. In front of the main shrine is a big, huge walkway, huge, very, very wide, and then grass on each side, and then trees, so quite huge. And they opened that one up to lay people, and there were over 3,000 lay people there to take the lay precepts and the lay Bodhisattva precepts. And so we were all in lines again, and they put strips of carpet down on the grass so that you have something to kneel on and to prostrate on. And so then we had that ceremony, and that was quite lovely. By dawn, then that's when we received the precepts. It was quite lovely, the ceremony actually. And then after that, they took us on a walk. We didn't know where we were going, but it was at least a couple miles, again in the heat of the day. And they took us out on the road, and we walked down, and they're building a Buddha memorial garden, which is going to house the tooth relic from the Buddha that they have. And it's this another huge huge area, huge installation. There's a Buddha there that is just huge on a big pedestal sitting. And then down in a big, huge walkway again. I can't tell you how big, like football field size, huge. And then, was it 6 pagodas on each? 9 pagodas on each? Yeah, so these buildings that are pagodas, and they're housing artifacts and lots of things in there, I think. And it isn't quite done, but they're supposed to have it open at the turn of the year, I think. And but they took us down there, and again, and then all of the 3,000 people that took lay precepts came down too. And the ones that couldn't walk, of course, they had these little shuttle buses and took them, because there were quite a lot of elderly people that took the precepts. The devotion of the laity there is quite astounding. And so we all again lined up in front of the Buddha, and again, big picture taking, and then walked back, and then we had lunch, and I guess the main thing that I learned about, especially these 3 days, I would watch how my mind, because it was quite rigorous, and I would watch how my mind would start creating this story. Okay, like after we did the Bhikshuni Ordination, okay, now we're done, now we can have a little rest. Or now we're done with the Bodhisattva precepts, now we can have a little rest. And each time I did that, of course, that wasn't what was going to happen. And I could see so clearly how when I created this story in my mind of, you know, the future, what was going to happen, and then it didn't, how much suffering came. And so I was able to really start putting down or watch when my mind would start saying, okay, this is probably going to happen now, or now pretty soon we'll be able to sit down and rest. And I just quit doing that. And that opened up my mind for being much more present with what was going on. Certainly not experiencing so much pain then when what I had constructed in my mind didn't happen. So that was quite a very clear teaching about these things we construct in our minds that have no basis and then bring such suffering. So it was quite easy to see that pattern of my mind and see then the result of when I dropped it, how much more space I had in my mind and how much more actual energy I had. A lot of energy goes out to kind of controlling the environment and figuring out what's going to happen and, getting everything in line, and boy, then when of course that doesn't happen, quite a lot of suffering. So that's just a few small examples of how this rigorous program really allowed me to see the workings of my mind and to see those patterns that I do that are not helpful at all to my mind. So it was quite a good teaching.